Hello again, this is Bob Weir with the Cross Timbers Gazette, and my guest today is Dabney Bassel, and he is running for the Justice of the Second Court of Appeals in Texas. Thank you for being here, Mr. Bassel.
Happy to be here, sir.
If you would, please give our viewers some background information like education, occupation, family, etc.
I'm a sixth-generation Texan. I grew up in San Antonio, but I've lived in Fort Worth for 32 years. I've been married to Pam for 27 years. We have a daughter, Catherine, who's getting her master's from UNT. I started practicing law in Fort Worth in 1984 with a firm called Law Snaker that was a larger firm, and my career has eventually moved to where I'm out on my own, kind of like to row my own boat. I'm board certified in civil appellate law, which is a certification held by less than 1% of the lawyers in Texas, and I've held that for 15 years.
And can you, maybe you have already, but what are the qualifications to be on the Second Court of Appeals?
Well, the legal qualifications are you have to be a U.S. citizen, you have to have been a citizen of Texas for 12 months, a citizen of the district for 6 months, a registered voter in the district between 35 and 74 years of age, and a practicing lawyer for 10 years, or a combination of practicing lawyer and a judge of a court of record for 10 years.
And how many cities and towns are in the jurisdiction of the court?
Well, I will tell you that I have not totaled up the cities and towns.
How about counties?
There are 12 counties, and just as a matter of curiosity, I totaled up the square mileage the other night, and there are 10,486 square miles in the Second Court of Appeals District.
Ooh, that's a large territory to cover.
and 3.1 million people.
Going to be a lot of campaigning.
Yes, sir.
How many justices sit on the court?
There are 7 justices on the court.
And how long is each term of office?
Each judge has a 6-year term, with one possible exception. The way the Constitution and statutes are written, if a judge turns 75 in the first 4 years of their term, they can only fulfill 4 years of the term.
All right, and for those voters who may not know, please explain the role of the Second Court of Appeals.
Well, the way I like to explain it is an appellate justice determines whether or not the courts that conduct trials got things right. Basically, what an appellate justice does is reviews a written record of what happens at trial, the written arguments of the lawyers in the form of briefs, and then decides the case by writing an opinion deciding the matter.
And if someone is involved in a civil case, let's say in Denton County, and they appeal the case, where does it go?
That would go to the Second Court of Appeals. Now, there are a number of ways that a civil case can get to the Court of Appeals. It can be by means of what's called a final judgment. That means that basically the court has disposed of all the parties and claims in the case. There also is an avenue of appeal called an interlocutory appeal, where the legislature has said there are certain matters of such consequence that we think they need to be reviewed by the court immediately, even though there's not a final judgment in the case. And then there are original proceedings, which are not statutory matters, but which the court views are of such importance, both from the standpoint of the legal issue involved and the consequence it's going to have on the parties, that those matters may go to the court immediately.
And does the court also handle criminal matters?
It does, sir.
It does. Okay. So let's take a civil case and the person has a judgment against them in a lower court.
Yes.
And they go to the Court of Appeals. The court can overturn the judgment entirely, or can they lessen the judgment?
Well, there are basically 3 approaches to what the court can do. One, the court can affirm the judgment, basically saying the trial court got things right. The Court of Appeals can reverse and render the case, that is, render its own judgment, saying we have enough information that we think the trial court made a mistake, but we have enough information that we can make our own judgment in the case. Or it can say we don't think the trial court did the right thing, but we don't have enough information to make our own judgment in the case, so we'll send it back to the trial court for a retrial.
And well, suppose that the case is not overturned or anything, can the person appeal further than the Second Court of Appeals?
Yes, sir. The Second Court of Appeals is one of the 14 mid-level appellate courts in Texas. The Court of Appeals, if an appeal is properly brought to it, has to write an opinion. But then the case can go on to the Texas Supreme Court if it's a civil case, or to the Court of Criminal Appeals if it's a criminal case. Now, the difference between the approach of the Court of Appeals and the two higher courts is that the higher courts have what is known as discretionary jurisdiction. They decide which cases they want to take. So there may be, I believe in both the Court of Criminal Appeals and the Supreme Court, more than 1,000 cases were filed last year, but they only took in the realm of about 100 cases to review.
So you've already answered the next question, which would be, what's the highest court in the state for civil and criminal matters? Well, for the civil, it would be the Supreme Court, and the criminal matter would be the Court of Criminal Appeals.
That's correct.
All right. All right. Well, Mr. Bassel, can you tell us what type of campaigning are you involved in now? Will you be doing door-to-door or literature mail-outs, debates?
Well, I'm doing everything I can think of, basically. As I mentioned, this is a large chunk of geography to cover. But I have been trying to get out and meet as many people as I possibly can. I've attended a huge number of events in Tarrant County, and I've also, I think, am up around 50 events outside Tarrant County in the other 11 counties of the Second Court of Appeals District. So I'm going to continue that process of trying to meet as many people as I can, and then we're going to also rely on my Facebook page and my website, and as we get closer to the primary, we'll turn to the more traditional methods of campaigning like newspaper ads and signs and mailings.
And would you like to mention your website?
Sure, it's Dabney Bassel for Judge.
All right. And by the way, just so everyone knows, the viewers know that these videos will all be appearing on the Denton County Republican website, and you can go there at www.dentongop.org. Mr. Bassel, is there anything else you'd like voters to know about you?
There are 5 people running in this race, so the voter needs to know how to distinguish between those 5 candidates. And in my case, I think I'm somewhat unique by virtue of my legal experience, by virtue of my service to the bar, by acting as an officer of the Tarrant County Bar Association and being the president of our local line of court. I've tried to really make a determination of what it is to be a conservative judge, and I think I have a long history of support for the Republican Party. So on the basis of those 4 factors, I hope I present a unique candidate to the electorate.
Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Bassel, for being here. I always learn something more.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you for watching.